and they're dying.
What we have seen now, and very specifically, the members of the New York Army National Guard, the 442nd Military Police Unit, they were deployed over to Iraq. They were exposed and put into areas where it had not been cleaned up as required. They were not provided the training, they were not provided equipment. And one of those soldiers conceived a child after he had been exposed, confirmed hot, and that child was born with similar birth defects that are observed readily in all the other children, whether in the Balkans, Afghanistan, up at Concord, New Hampshire, or in Iraq.
Can you imagine that you're paying for this horrible weapon to be used? You're paying for soldiers to be trained without real training, without real knowledge of the weapons they're using. They don't know about the chromosomal damage. They don't know about the birth defects to their own kids.
We have to go back to the basic premise. The Los Alamos Memorandum, issued in March of 1991, followed up by the United States Army Environmental Policy Institute directive from December of '92, was very clear. Thou shalt ensure the use of uranium munitions in combat through active proponency and altering of all documents that refer to the serious adverse health and environmental effects.
Just imagine, in a thought experiment, if you will, that when the human race has wiped itself out with all the toxins and absurdities that it goes in for, that a Martian historian lands in a flying saucer, and we are now watching a Martian television program about this lost civilization on Earth. And the Martian historian might say, well, here's a race that lived on a planet where there was only one really serious radiological hazard, a substance which was safely dispersed in the rocks, so that all that happened was this very small amount of radiation came out of the rocks and had very little effect on them. And what did they do? Well, they took these rocks, they went all over the world to find where these rocks were, and then they pulled them out of the ground with huge diggers, and at vast expense and with enormous factories, they created a very pure version of this substance. And then if that isn't enough, then what they did is they took this substance and they made it into bombs, and they dropped it on each other in such a way that it was most widely dispersed and had the maximum possible radiological, cancer and genetic damage effect. This is what they did. Well, what can you do with such a race? Between 1991 and 1999, measurements it became possible to measure depleted uranium in the environment. And by 2003, Gulf War II, for the big bombs, the bombs that started to be employed, they started to use ordinary uranium. The ordinary uranium could not be distinguished from uranium in the environment. Even if we don't have evidence that this is so, it would be almost likely that it would be so, and that the US would start using ordinary uranium in big cruise missiles and bunker-busting bombs. The point is this, that we have measured large amounts of uranium, ordinary uranium, in the urine of the Gulf War II veterans. So putting all this together, and also adding in the fact that very recently I have measured uranium isotopes in craters in southern Lebanon, in the town of Khiam, and also in an air filter in Beirut, which show that the Israelis are certainly using ordinary uranium and enriched uranium. And so something very funny is going on with uranium weapons at the moment, which we need to investigate.
How is it possible that a person who never went to the Gulf now suffers from Gulf War syndrome? Lots of GIs are now sick, but a lot of them were stateside. What did they all have in common, those that went and those that did not? Botulism and anthrax vaccines. Let's explore the role that vaccines have in Gulf War syndrome.
It will be gas. It will be nasty. These atropine oxime injectors go along with your PV pill packs. In the event that you're attacked by nerve agents such as SAMAD, these agents will produce casualties immediately if you do not deploy these countermeasures in Ricky Tick.
Why in the f*** we've already taken a set of PB pills and just now be issued the f***ing injectors?
Shut the f*** up! I'm sick of your shit. All right, man, calm down. Look, they don't want chemically dead fighters on CNN. Just sign it, Cougar.
I was exposed to numerous vaccinations. I can't even tell you how many because they just lined us up and we would do like 3 or 4 shots in one station and more shots in the next station. My left leg began to swell, especially my ankle. I've always been very athletic, kickboxing, yoga, everything. And one morning I woke up and my ankle was enormous. I couldn't get my jeans on or off because my calf was so swollen. I had felt tingling in my ankle before it started, but I, thought it was nothing. And when I woke up in the morning, it was huge. My life is affected today. It's weird. I deal with like a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment because I hate feeling or thinking I'm less than. And I really feel that way with my leg. It's been really hard to deal with that. So I have to maneuver to hide it when I can, but I don't have any answers for anyone who asks me what's wrong with my leg. I'm young. There shouldn't be anything wrong with me.
I woke up one morning and these knuckles in my hand were like golf balls, and I just kind of blew it off. Maybe I injured something or an old injury, and about 2 days later I woke up and my feet were swollen like elephantitis. Purple, I couldn't walk on them, they were very tingly and sensitive, so I would have to crawl. And at this point in my life we had a newborn son who I was trying to take care of also, and so I would have to crawl to his crib and lift myself up and get him out of the crib and crawl to it was amazing.
During the Gulf War, I was a shot team or a vaccination team that went out and gave out the prostragmine, bromide, and the anthrax shots. My shot team gave out 75,000 injections in a 2-week period. So needless to say, my thumb had a blister on it.
There are a lot of people in the alternative medical community, including well-educated MDs, who feel that there have been no significant long-term studies of the effects of vaccination, and that to a very great extent there is a myopia on the part of the medical community not looking at long-term harm that vaccines cause.
The toxins that are in vaccines include mercury, aluminum, and squalene. Squalene is an oil distantly related to cholesterol that has a very interesting effect when it goes into the human body in the form of an injection. Patients who've received the squalene anthrax vaccine have ended up with illnesses like multiple sclerosis and systemic lupus erythematosus and bronchial asthma and psoriasis, and the whole rash of autoimmune diseases can be brought on in these military persons who served in the Gulf War.
Because of the potential anthrax threat, last year the Defense Department ordered vaccinations, and one of the first in line was Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Eric Benken. Despite isolated protests, the vast majority of medical experts endorsed the vaccine's use. And despite charges that the so-called Gulf War syndrome and anthrax are connected, Huxell says that's just not true. The Defense Department continues to stress the safety of the anthrax vaccine, and all troops headed for the Persian Gulf receive the inoculation series.
One of the things that scares me about the anthrax vaccine is it's been stockpiled in big quantities for use in the United States. And obviously, I feel very strongly that anyone who takes any vaccine that has squalene in it is risking their life.
I served in Iraq, and the one thing that I remember was that we received inoculations that we were told we weren't able to know what they were. And I had an adverse reaction right there on the border of Syria and Turkey, where my lungs started to fill with fluid, and for about 2 weeks I was pretty sick.